What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Titus, and I really appreciate you joining me again for one of my videos. Today, we're going to talk about the greatest gift to the free-to-play community, BlueStacks. Well, one of the greatest gifts to the free-to-play community. Now, if you don't know what BlueStacks is, essentially BlueStacks is a mobile emulator, and what that means is it kind of spoofs your phone on your desktop, or spoofs, programs into believing that you're running your phone instead of an application on your desktop. If you've ever grown up with emulators like I did, I grew up emulating a lot of games, especially ones from classic Nintendo, Super Nintendo, all that good old stuff. It basically functions the same way. So we're going to start off, you just come to bluestacks.com and you're going to go ahead and download this. Now, I was going to download it and show you guys how to do it, but for some reason it was acting funny because I already have BlueStacks on my PC and I wasn't trying to uninstall it and then reinstall it and lose all of the, saved passwords, all that stuff that I've got on there, right? Plus, I'm sure there's other guides out there if you guys really don't know how to download BlueStacks, but really the purpose of this video is to show you exactly what you can do with BlueStacks. So as you can see here, once you've got BlueStacks downloaded and you open it up, what you're going to do is you're going to come here and you're just going to search for Raid, right? You're going to find Raid Shadow Legends, and what you're going to need to do is you're essentially going to need to download a version of Raid through BlueStacks so that BlueStacks can interface with it and actually run it. From there, all you've got to do is you've got Raid now download on BlueStacks and you open it up. And as you can see, I've been running BlueStacks because I absolutely love the program. I understand that some people have concerns that it's malware and it definitely will trigger your Windows device, but I've run virus scans on it and I haven't found anything. And a lot of people do use BlueStacks, not only just for Raid, but like for a lot of mobile games because of all of the functionality it offers. So if they were up to some shiesty stuff, I would have probably figured that out by now. I haven't tracked anything, but I can understand if you don't like the idea of a third-party program like this on your PC. Well, then, thanks for joining in on the video, and I hope to catch you next time. For those of you who are still here, now I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of BlueStacks and exactly how you can use it to the fullest and what I use it for. So as you see on the right hand, we have all of the different widgets that basically give us all of the functionality. We've got a full screen mode here. We can mess with the volume. This right here will lock the cursor into the BlueStacks window, so you'll have to like Alt Tab if you want to go to another program or whatever. Very useful for not accidentally clicking outside of the box. I don't use it, but it is nice to have. We have keyboard functionality. Now, I haven't really messed with this, but as you can see, you can essentially set it so that any key on your keyboard will do something on a specific portion of the screen. So for instance, if I want to add a tap spot, I'll take this tap spot and we'll say I'll drag it right here. And then we'll say H. And so now every time I hit the H key, just go ahead and save that. Changes are saved, and so now every time I hit the H key, it'll just hit the replay button or hit whatever button is on the screen at the time. And if there is no button, then it'll try to hit the screen and nothing will happen. And as you can see with the keyboard functionality, there's a whole slew of options. You have repeatedly tap. If you're using BlueStacks to emulate other games, you have D-pad functionality, swiping, zooming, basically everything that you would normally do with your hand. You can set it up so that keystrokes on your keyboard will do the same thing. So that's quite nice. I don't really mess with it because I find that it's not really necessary for Raid, but again, it's one of those things nice to have. I don't find it super necessary. Now, the one thing that I actually use is the big reason why I use BlueStacks is the macros. Now, essentially what you do here is you set up macros based on keystrokes or clicks on the screen, right? And so let's just take a really simple one, right? We'll come up here and we'll hit record new macro. And as you can see, the timer starts. So that means right now it's recording anything I do on the screen. So if I say wanted to just have something like multi-battles, but I don't have any multi-battles, well, I'll just click replay. Once I'm done with my macro, I'll go ahead and hit stop, and it'll put a new macro in, and then I can just rename this to replay. We'll say replay. Right. And so now, as you can see, Kale's running through the mission. Takes him a little while. I think the best time I've gotten with my Kale is maybe 10 seconds when the moon and stars align, but normally it doesn't take too much longer, 20 seconds or so. All right, that run was 31 seconds. Apparently my best time was 7 seconds, so look at me. So now, while I have this macro manager screen up, I can take this and I'll hit the play button. Now, as you may recall, it took me a little while I was explaining to you what the time meant in the top right and all that stuff. So it's going to take a little while, and then eventually it'll hit the replay button. Now I don't have any energy, so the stage isn't going to replay. Another nice thing is all of these macros are customizable, so I can decide how many times it's going to run. So for instance, if I have this macro set up to 30-second or so intervals, and let's say I'm doing an ice golem tournament, and I know I only need 100 points, and those 100 points will take me 3 runs, I could change this to repeat 3 times, hit save, hit play, go make a sandwich, grab a drink, watch a TV show, and BlueStacks is going to handle everything for me in the background. I could also set a duration. So if I want this to happen for a certain amount of times, then, or for a certain amount of time, like say I want to do this for about an hour, I could do that. Or I could just say infinitely until stop. So as soon as I hit play, it's going to keep clicking the screen. And the nice part is, because the way it's clicking the screen, even if you run out of energy, it'll keep trying to replay. And then as soon as you have the energy for it, it'll just hit replay. And this is a big way I avoid not capping out on my energy. We also have a more complicated thing where we can actually nest macros into macros. So let's get into it, shall we? So as you know, when I was talking about unlocking the sparring pit in your guardian ring, one of the things I mentioned is a lot of value is being missed because while you're asleep, you're obviously not able to go in and click into this area right here, right? You can't click this, and you could absolutely set a macro, which I have done, this sparring pit macro. And essentially what the sparring pit macro is, if I had the sparring pit open, it would just click every portion of the screen. In fact, why don't we make an entire macro, nested macro together? So I would hit record, and I'm going to click here, 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 and here, and then I'm going to end. And as you can see, I have a new macro set up, and we could just say sparring pit levels, Sarring's pit levels, Parring pit levels. They're good enough, good enough. So now I have a macro. I could sit there and I'm clicking through and I'm getting all of my levels, right? Well, unfortunately, that also means that I'm not running missions while I'm asleep, so I'm going to cap out on energy eventually. But what if I told you there's an entire string that you could create to where it'll do both for as long as you want, and you won't miss out on anything? So here's what we're going to do. Starting right here from this screen, I'm going to hit record new macro. I'm going to go into the guardian ring, click, and I'm just going to click on each of these. Now I'm not getting a level now, but what this is doing is it's telling the macro to click here when it runs. I'll click X, come back out here, and I'll end it there. So now we've got a new macro. What are we going to call this? We're going to call this sleep time sparring pit. So if I click this macro, now what'll happen is While on this screen, it'll go into the Guardian Ring. It's going to click through every single spot, and then it's going to hit X. It's going to hit X. There we go. And as you can see, the macro stopped as soon as it hit X. So now we have Sleep Time Sparring Pit. Well, we also don't want to cap out on energy. So let's just say for now, we're going to want to train up some champions while we're asleep. So I would start another macro. I'd hit record new macro. I'm going to come down. I'm going to hit the battle button. I'm going to hit campaign, and I'm going to scroll all the way down, and I'm going to click on this. Then I'm going to click on this, and obviously I'm out of energy. And in fact, you know what? Just for this video, guys, I'm going to treat you to something nice. All right, so I had a 50 energy just sitting in my inbox. So I decided, you know what? For this video, you guys are worth it. I'll use my 50 energy to show you how to set these macros up. So now we want a macro that'll do some training for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit record new macro. We're going to come over here. We're going to hit battle. We're going to hit campaign, and we're going to drag over to Brimstone Path. We're going to come to stage 3. We're going to hit battle. And then what I like to do is, if this is going to run for an extended period of time like it does for me when I'm asleep, what I do is I will click out these 3 champions and I'll scroll all the way to the end. And then I'll pick somewhere like here or maybe here, and I'll click on these 3 champions. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because it orders your champions by star rating and then levels. So what you're doing is, if you're always clicking the back portion of your champion roster, it ensures that this isn't going to accidentally level champs to 20, like say they're 2 stars to 20, and then keep trying to level them. Because as the champions in those slots level up, when you pull them out, the next in the back of the line are going to be the unleveled champions. Make sense? So we're going to let this run for a bit. And what I like to do specifically for a macro like this, where I know I'm going to let this run for an extended period of time while I'm asleep, is even when the stage ends, I wait a little bit to account for variance in time, because these are very precise mouse clicks. So if you have a run that takes 15 seconds and you immediately hit stage select and you back out, if you have a run that, say, later on takes 20 seconds, at the 15-second mark, it is going to try and hit the stage selection button, but that button's not there, and the entire macro breaks, basically. So I'll wait a little bit. This has probably been long enough. I'll hit stage selection. I'll X out again, and then X out one more time. Once I come here, I'll end the macro. Now you'll see I have a new macro waiting, and I'll call this Sleep Time Training. Then once I've got 2 macros I want to work together, I'll come up here to merge macros. This we'll call Sleep Time Cycle. And now from the existing macros, we'll put some together. Now, as you can see, I already have Sleepy Time Run. That's because essentially I've already set this macro up, and I'm just making these macros right now to show you guys the hands-on process. So we'll put Sleep Time Sparring Pit first, and then we'll put Sleep Time Training. We'll merge those together. And now, as you can see, we have right here Sleep Time Cycle, and the button is a little bit different. Instead of the cog wheel, we have the cog wheel sandwiched between 2 blocks. When we open this up, it'll allow us to change the settings like we normally would, right? How many times we want to repeat it, for what duration, intervals between executions, that's all fine. But we can also open these up a little bit and set intervals. Now, what this will do is this will say, if I say delay next script by, let's say, 10 seconds, what that means is when I click this button, we'll just update it. When I hit Sleep Time Cycle, it'll run the first macro, the Sparring Pit macro, And once it's done, it'll come back out to the screen and then it'll wait for 10 seconds. Once that 10 seconds is up, it'll execute the next macro. Now, I would love to tell you that this is all you need to do, but I have found from fiddling with this that there are certain things that can get in the way. One thing that really breaks these macros is when, if you notice, while we were having this video, we haven't had a single pop-up. However, had we had a pop-up offer, that pop-up offer would be covering the screen, and I wouldn't be able to click on the Guardian ring, which means the macro would break because it would try to click on the Guardian ring, and it wouldn't be able to get in there. And so, in order to get rid of pop-ups or anything like that you may or may not get, what I like to do is I like to record a dummy macro. And I'll hit the record button, and I know that somewhere around here is where the X button will sit when those pop-ups happen. So I'll just sit here for like 10 seconds and I'll just click X on this area. That's it. Just click X, 12 seconds. And now we have macro 37. We'll just call this reset dummy. And so now we'll come to our sleep time cycle. We'll open this back up and we'll take reset dummy and we'll add it in. We'll actually add in 2 copies just in case. So we'll put one between sleep time sparring pit in case we leave the sparring pit and a pop-up pops up. And then we'll put one, essentially this is between sleep time training and sleep time sparring pit. So once the training is done and we come back to the main screen, if a pop-up happens there, we now have another reset macro to go through and click X on those offers. I'll hit update and now we'll just kind of see how it works, right? So I'll hit sleep time cycle and sit back. It opens up the Guardian ring. It is now clicking through every single slot. Once it's done that, it'll X out to the main screen in a second. Now that reset dummy is sitting there where it's just clicking that portion of the screen where I know the X would be. So had we gotten a pop-up, I would have been able to show you that, but apparently the game likes to throw pop-ups at me when I'm trying to record a completely different style of video. But when I'm actually trying to show you guys this stuff, they don't want to throw any offers at me. So as you can see, the training cycle has started. It's scrolling through. Brimstone Path, Stage 3. It's going to, I believe we had a bit of a pause. It is going to go through that pause that existed because I was Yapatron 5000. As you can see now, it just took off all those champions. It scrolls through and it's going to pick the 3 least leveled champions, which funnily enough are still those champions. And then it's going to run us through. All right, so as you can see, we got through the run. I did a little bit of a clip away because I didn't want you guys to have to watch my Kale run 12-3 for 34 seconds. So now we get to the end. Like I said, if there was a bigger variance, you can definitely fine tune this to be a little more precise. But I would say that it's not necessarily necessary because a macro like this, I'm usually running when I'm either asleep or I'm out of the house for the day. I'm not able to sit there and actually check in on raid for an extended period of time. As you can see, it pops us out. That dummy reset is going to run for a second. And once that's done, the macro chain should end. So now we could go in and we could go to sleep time cycle. And I could say, because this is going to be running when I'm sleeping, I could run this for a duration of, for me personally, I run it for about 5 or 6 hours because when I wake up, I do want some energy available to me so that I can start dictating more of like intricate things that I might want, you know, one run here, one run there, vice versa, whatever, right? Also, you're not, yeah, we'll go ahead and discard chambers. You're also not limited to just this, right? So for instance, if there's a dragon tournament and you would rather be running dragon than training champions, you could take sleep time training out and put a similar macro where you hit battle. Can't do that with the macros open. We hit battle, go to dungeon, come over to dragon, click the stage we want, and run. The amount of processes that you could have the game run is pretty much limitless. The only thing that I have found that will break the chain is when you get a lightning offer, because the lightning offer you X out and then it wants you to confirm. And the problem is that the confirm button for me sits somewhere around here, and so there's a chance I accidentally click the market or the forge. However, that could just be fixed by maybe changing the resolution on your game to where that button wouldn't sit on one of these two. And then your dummy reset would probably look like, I'll click here, click there, click there, click there. And you see how I accidentally clicked the mark and ooh, we have an ancient shard. Lucky. So as you can see, it can mess up, but if you can set a resolution to where confirming leaving the lightning offer is somewhere neutral like here, you know, I click there, click there, click there, and I would do that for 10 seconds just to clear the screen. And once you've done that, your macros literally won't break. Another reason why having the dummies are nice is because sometimes BlueStacks takes a second to load, more so than like say the actual Plarium Play app. And so the dummy resets sometimes just give BlueStacks loading a second, because if you're trying to fine tune it down to every single click per second, what I've noticed is loading, like if it takes an extra time for screen to load that it normally doesn't when you were making the macro will break. Essentially, the macros break whenever the screen isn't exactly what it was when you made the macro. So if something, you know, there's a pop-up or the loading screen, one thing I have noticed is you would think that when this macro runs, when I come here and I click stage 3 and it tells me I'm out of energy, you would think that that would break the macro, but in that specific case, it does not actually break the macro. What ends up happening is that little pop-up happens, and then I'm assuming when the selection, like when the run is done and you have the select stage screen button on the top right, the first click that's trying to click up to the top right drops that screen, and then the macro runs like normal. All right, guys. Well, like I said, BlueStacks has a lot of functionality, but really to me, the biggest sell point for BlueStacks is the macros. And so that's really what I was focusing on with this video. However, I do have a bit of a treat for you guys. As you can see, we have an extra legendary event happening right now, and I have a single sacred shard. And I've decided that pulling during a two times event would be the most optimal, but if I can hit on that point, what is it for sacreds? If we can hit on this 6% chance, now 12% would be a lot better, but if we can hit on this 6% chance, we can get 2 legendaries for the price of 1. And realistically, worst case scenario, we just get a decent, or we hope to get a decent epic and then kind of see what we get. So let us see what we're gonna get. All right, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. All right, we got an epic and we got Zargala. Zargala. So Zargala can be a pretty good nuker. I don't really need a nuker, so that's kind of a bummer, but there's definitely worse we could have done. She'll be really good in Orc faction crypts. And again, maybe in certain scenarios, like certain dungeons where the affinity is off for Kale or Alice, maybe we can build up a Zargala to work in those off affinity dungeons. Well, anyway, that's been it for me, guys. I'm so glad you joined me today. I hope everything I said was useful. I hope you guys will download BlueStacks and run your games more efficiently. If you liked the video, go ahead and thumbs up that like button. Go ahead and drop a comment down below telling me how I did. Subscribe to the channel. That would really mean a lot to me and really help the channel out. And until next time, I'll see you later.